Hello, I'm David Airey. I'm a graphic designer from Northern Ireland. I have been self-employed since 2005. Despite having been in this role for more than 20 years now, there'll be quiet times. Where is the next project coming from? Am I going to be able to afford the bills? About a year of me publishing maybe 2 or 3 posts per week when I got an email out of the blue from a publisher in the States asking if I would write a logo book with them. And that book is now in 3 editions in multiple languages. We're hardest on ourselves, I think, especially when we've been self-employed for so long.
Yes, so welcome to another one. I'm Steve Follen, nice to see you. This is David Airey's freelance story, and if you're in the design world, you probably already know his name. He's written some seriously well-respected, best-selling books in design. Identity designed, logo design love, and actually for that matter, I feel like we should do this one in the Being Freelance book club, one called Work for Money, Design for Love, which is much more around starting and running a successful business. Anyway, he's literally written the book. He's been doing this for over 2 decades now, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. So yes, that coming up in a moment. How are you though? Hope you're doing all right as we head towards the summer here in the UK, when I'll be taking a bit of a break. I will still be hanging out in the community. Come find me, beingfreelance.com. Not just me, of course. It'd be weird if it was just me, but hundreds of lovely freelancers who get what it's like and want to not feel alone, because you're not alone. Being Freelance, you know the drill. beingfreelance.com. Should we crack on though? Head to Northern Ireland to chat to freelance graphic designer David Airey. Hey David.
Steve, it is a pleasure to be with you, so thank you. You invited me on your podcast 5 years ago or something like that, and it wasn't the right timing for me. I think I was going through some issues, or it was testing time, so I declined as politely as I could. But it's funny because I'd thought about it over the years a few times, that because I had been doing a few other podcasts, and the thought was always in my head, I must get back in touch with Steve because he invited me kindly. I declined, but I shouldn't be doing other podcasts when the invite was there from you. So thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you.
Like any good freelancer, I followed up. I was back.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
As ever, how about we get started hearing how you got started being freelance?
Sure. I was living in Edinburgh at the time. I moved to Edinburgh when I was 19 to study, and I ended up working for a small cancer charity where I was responsible for their print and marketing and their website. After some time working for them, it was about 18 months, I left to go traveling. And when I returned, they hadn't filled my role. So I pitched the idea to them that they become my first client. And for 3 days a week for the next 18 months or so, I would work for them from home, invoicing at the end of each month. And in the other days of the week, I would spend that building my website a little more and searching for other clients. And thankfully, it just grew gradually over the years, and 20 years on, still doing the same role, still loving it, and very grateful to be in the position that I am, able to, I have a small family. My 2 kids they're off school for summer now, so they're in the house, which is just a few meters away from my garden office here. And it's great to be closer to them whenever I'm not working. Sometimes when I'm working too, because we need breaks and I can get out into the garden, play football with my son, and my daughter joins in, and it's great. So that's kind of how I started. I took my previous employer on as my first client, and the rest of the time I tried to learn about how to best market myself and find new clients.
So where did those early other clients come from? Were they finding you online, or?
Yes, it was mostly online. I tried the cold outreach, which was very unsuccessful. Clients were usually finding me through the blog posts that I was publishing. The blog posts were initially targeted at potential clients, describing what I did and how I might be able to help them, but that didn't get much traction. And I knew of other designers who had their own blogs, and they were publishing blog posts about what they liked and various design work and what they did. So I tried to emulate that. I made my blog posts more focused toward designers because we were each commenting on our blog posts and linking back to each other, so that helped boost the search engine rankings. So it became more of a design blog rather than a business blog. And I said yes to as many things, as many potential clients, the inquiries that came my way. I tried things that I ultimately didn't enjoy, and it led me to focus then on the logo work and the visual identity side of a brand, because that's what I love the most. So thankfully, over the years, as a result of my books and my portfolio, the inquiries are very specific. Usually people get in touch with me, they want a logo or a logo as part of a broader identity. And so, long story short, yes, things are going great. Finding clients can be difficult, and I often wonder where the next one is coming from, because as any independent designer can relate, there's peaks and troughs. You're not always flat out, and you're not always in the middle. You're not always quiet. It goes ups and downs. So despite having been in this role for more than 20 years now, there'll be quiet times, and I still think to myself, okay, I need to be doing more now. Where's the next project coming from? Am I going to be able to afford the bills looking further down the line? So it's a strange headspace where, despite the years and despite knowing about those ups and downs, they still have a little kind of impact in there to some extent. I just try to enjoy it as much as I can, because nothing's forever. So just take each project as it comes, really.
I think it's really interesting that it was when you switched your blog to writing about design. So you were sharing other people's designs, not just your own?
Yes, that's right. I started with davidairey.com, which is my personal domain name. And I had a blog there. It was on a lot of different topics, just really anything creative related that interested me. Really broad, from things like poster design to book covers to architecture to music videos. So when I realized that it was the logo aspect of a design project that I loved the most, I thought it made sense to start a new blog, which is where logodesignlove.com came in. And I launched that in 2008. And it was only online for about a year of me publishing maybe 2 or 3 posts per week, when I got an email out of the blue from a publisher in the States asking if I would write a logo book with them, which I said yes to. And that book is now in 3 editions in multiple languages. And that's another kind of stream of potential clients. They pick up my book in foreign bookstores in different languages, and they send me an email. So it's funny how these things come about.
I love this story so much. I'm just imagining you getting the email from a publisher in the States.
Unexpected, very unexpected. It was from Nikki McDonald. She was the senior acquisitions editor at Peach Pit, which is a subdivision of Pearson. So I spent about 8 months coming up with the content. I would send the files, the Word documents first to my copy editor. It would come back torn to shreds because I was crap at writing. And then I would set the design. I designed my books too, so I set them in InDesign, and I send the PDFs, and then the final tweaks come back, and that's how the first book came around. And I've gone on to write another few, so I've got 4 books, and yeah, I would recommend that to anyone. Everyone's got a book in them. I didn't have a clue at the start, really, but you learn over time, and you just enjoy the process.
And so that book, which it seems, I'm not a designer, but it seems like this is like a go-to book for designers around the world, which must be so exciting. But that book that came from the blog is still like sharing your views on someone else's work, like as in, this is why it works, or this is why I love it, that kind of thing. If somebody hadn't seen your blog, and it's that kind of writing, it's not just here's an image, it's you explaining it.
To a certain extent, yes. Over the years it has changed, and the past couple of years I've not been updating it regularly, which I've toyed with the idea of doing that more, but at the same time, I have the client work on the go, and that's my focus. So the blog in the early days was, I say regrettably, but I'm not sure if it was more negative. There were some blog posts that I published that were more clickbaity. There was one that I remember about the London 2012 Olympics logo, where I called it a disaster, and it got a few hundred comments on it, and it was viewed hundreds of thousands of times. And looking back, that's not the type of content that reflects what I want to do today. I want things to be a lot more positive. So if there's a logo or a series of logos or a studio that I admire or an independent designer, and I want to share their work, then I'll pick out my favorite projects, write a little bit about them, and then share that on the social media accounts for the website. And I have a newsletter on Substack that I publish maybe every month or two that goes out to a few thousand people. So the Logo Design Love blog, it helped a great deal. That's a side project of mine that grew into a book and then helped attract clients. And then there was a second design website that I launched in 2010, I think. So a couple of years after I started Logo Design Love, then I went on to identitydesigned.com, which was a little bit broader than Logo Design Love in the fact that it shared not just the logo, but the art direction, the web design, the print marketing. So more of a complete project. But each post would be a single project from a studio that would contribute their work. So I got a lot of contributions from studios around the world because they wanted me to feature their work, and I wanted to feature their work too because I thought it was great. It helped me as well as them. So there was a mutual benefit there. So those side projects have kept me going over the years, and I know that clients that I've had over the years have found me through those websites. They've told me that. So it's worked out really, really nicely.
At what point then was it literally as you started the first blog that you niched into like logo and brand identity yourself as a designer?
Yeah, it was very much around that time, and that wasn't too far after I became self-employed. I had the job with Myeloma UK, the cancer charity, I started with there in 2003. It was 2005 whenever I started working for myself with them as my first client. And then it was 2008 when I launched the Logo Design Love website. And in those 3 years, between the time I'd started and then the Logo Design Love website, I was taking on a broader range of work. So there was web programming in there as well, which looking back, I didn't really enjoy. But yeah, it was definitely those 3 years made me realize more that it was the logo aspect of a design project that I really loved the fact that you have about 4 weeks or 8 weeks or so, give or take, to spend learning about a client's business and then distilling that into the smallest possible distinctive emblem or mark. I love the sketching. I love the learning from new people every so often. And I loved whenever I could see that logo appear in real life after me just, sitting at home on my own with a pen and some paper. There's a satisfaction there that's it's difficult to describe. But over the years, it's still there because I'm still working at home alone to a large degree. I have my family and I have my friends, and I have a lot of designers that I've met online that I've yet to meet in person, but hopefully. And then it can be isolating to an extent. And I think there's a drive toward that isolation in broader society where you think about 15-minute cities and everyone more, work from home. So I'm not really sure where I was going with that, Steve.
Well, no, that sounds like that all stemmed from you picking a niche, that like the snowball effect into the success that it then brought.
Yeah, design was always something that I really enjoyed. It's why I moved to Edinburgh to do a design degree. which turned out not to be so much about design and more about managing the print process and managing people. So, but that's another story. Yeah, a lot of the design that I learned was self-taught and learning from others after my formal studies.
So self-taught with design to a large extent. And how about to the business side of it? Was that also something you were figuring out?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes that I made would have been doing the design work before getting paid a percentage of the fee. Even though at the start of a project, I would say to a client, it's going to cost this much, and they'd say, yes, let's go ahead with it. And I was just so keen to have the job and to do the work that I would share my ideas. And that's essentially what a designer is being paid for, their ideas. So if you share this before any payment takes place, you're leaving yourself open. And I can remember more than a few times when I would do the work and the client would disappear. So my terms changed over the years where I don't begin the design work before receiving a 50% payment. It's usually 50%. It depends on the size of the total project fee. Sometimes it could be a little less than that, but it's usually 50% before the work begins and then 50% on completion, but before I send any of the files. So that helps speed things up at the end as well. And I say 50% at the start before the design work begins, but there is work that takes place before that. There's the back and forth with the client. There's learning a little bit about their business before you get to the research phase of your paid engagement. So there's always time involved before any money exchanges hands, but to a large extent, it's 50% upfront and 50% at the end. And I nobody told me that that's what you needed to do at the outset. So I lost some money there, but it was a valuable lesson. We learn the fastest from our own mistakes.
Yeah. What else would you say were key things that you figured out along the way?
Well, it was taking on the work that I most enjoyed, learning to say no to people, because I was so keen to please that's one of the reasons why I said yes to a lot. I wasn't as critical about the right fit with potential clients. Over your time in the profession, you can pick up little red flags that make it more obvious that it's not going to work out. So it's best just to politely decline. Saying no to the wrong projects just means you're much more available when the right one comes along, even though there's a gamble there. But there's a gamble in taking on the wrong project whenever you do have a gut feeling. You got to trust your instinct about. Most of the inquiries that I get are emails first. And sometimes people will call me directly or they'll set up a video call through my website. But mostly it's emails, and they're just little cues that you can pick up about whether someone is really trusting of your ability to do what they're looking for, or are they just looking for a price that they can send to a committee that means that they can sign off with somebody else better. The business side of things was something that I had to learn more so than the design side of things, because I had a little experience with design before that, but when I look back to my earliest projects, there's a cringeworthiness there that I think a lot of designers would go through. As you gradually over the years, you get better and better and better, and when you look at your earliest work, it's not something that you would do, but that's just a part of the process. That's why you can afford to charge more as you go through the years, because your output is better, and you can see that physically from looking back at your past case studies. So I had to do a lot of learning on the job, and I'm still learning. I would never say that. I know I'm not the best designer out there by a long stretch, but I'm good enough to do the job that my clients want me to do, and that makes them happy at the end of the day, satisfied, and more than satisfied. My aim is to delight my clients, and they often give me some really nice testimonials. So although there are studios and designers who are at a level above what I'm at. There are studios and designers who charge a lot more than what I do too. I think I'm in a good spot where I charge what the clients think my work is worth and what I am happy to accept to work for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, or I think the longest project I've worked on was maybe about 6 months. And a lot of that depends on how fast the client is at getting back to me.
I'm glad you mentioned your case studies and testimonials, because your website has some amazing case studies on it. Although I'm also thinking, you've been doing this for 21 years, so there must be a filtering process. But I'm wondering how much time you set aside. Like, what's your thinking, your process behind putting your work online, your portfolio, your case studies?
Well, I want it to reflect the work that I'm happiest with and the work that I want more of. So the logo is an important part of all my case studies. Some of the projects on there might be 10 years old. Some might be 6 months old. I couldn't tell you the amount of total logos that I've designed over the years, but my portfolio has perhaps 10 or 15 in total, because there's only so many that a client needs to see before they get in touch with you. I can understand why large studios and agencies will have a lot of work on their websites. They have a much bigger capacity, so it's expected that they have this huge body of work. My portfolio reflects the fact that I know what my potential clients need to see in order to make a decision, and I don't want to put on too much. I want to give them a snapshot, something that says to somebody, this guy focuses on this and his work is good. A body of work that includes books and speaking engagements and testimonials, and has social profiles that are followed. So there's a bit of a social trust there. Yeah, I only put on as much as what I think is necessary for me to get new clients. I don't want to overload, and I don't want to show work that I know I could improve on, which is often the case when I look back at my old projects. And like I said, that's the way it should be. Your portfolio is never finished. It's always a work in progress. So you've got to balance that with the fact that you can't spend all day looking at it. So there'll be months that go by and I don't really make much of a change to my portfolio, because it's at a stage where it's good enough to attract new business. Then the client work becomes my focus. So whenever there's a bit of a downtime, that's when I'll put a new project on my portfolio.
Yeah, I like that. In terms of your marketing, because you mentioned social profile, but you're not on Instagram, are you?
I'm not. No, I'm on LinkedIn, X. I think I'm on Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, really. That was different in the past. I'm conflicted about social media, because I know that a lot of people use it as a beneficial tool to bring in new business and to earn that way. But I don't like how the algorithms are geared to addict you, and we spend enough time looking at screens. My opinion is that if I have the clients, if I have the business, that I can just do the design work and then leave my office and spend time with my family and my kids and my friends and just time for myself, then I don't want to be continually scrolling on my phone again. Or I can see the importance, and I've come to know a lot of people through there that I value those relationships too. But there's a downside to it that you need to weigh that up. It's called social media, but essentially you're sitting in a room by yourself looking at a phone. It's not really social. The social aspect is the thing that I love that you do, where there's the in real life meetings and you get out and you bring people together, and or even you have the calls where you bring everyone together on the video calls, don't you? That is something that for me has a lot more value than the social media profiles, I think. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that a lot of people make social media work for them and they don't go overboard and they do have a good balance. for me, yeah, I share my work on social media once in a while, and I like to see what other people are putting on there from time to time, but it's not really a big part of my business at this stage.
On the plus side, you built your profile through your blogs, and then that led to your writing, and that has managed to sustain like that profile.
Yes, I would say that there are still just a few months ago, a client found me through he was searching for logo design of a particular kind, and he did I think it was a Google image search. One of the images was hosted on my Logo Design Love website. So he clicked on it. You know, when you see a Google image search, then there's a link at the bottom to visit the original source. So then he went through to the website and he thought to himself, well, who's hosting this website? And he went to the About page. There was my details. He went to my portfolio. So yes, while I don't update those side projects, the Logo Design Love and the Identity Design, as much as I did, they're still bringing in inquiries. And so that is a huge value, and if somebody asked me what should I do to attract new clients, yeah, a side project like that is ideal, because not only does it attract visitors to your website, it also gives potential clients a clue into how much you are invested in the work that you do. If the side project is related to what the service or product you sell, then it just shows your enjoyment and your interest in what you do. And that's why clients hire us, because we are the ones who are most interested in doing the job right and crafting it in a way that a client doesn't have the time to invest for themselves to be able to do that.
Isn't he great? Back with David's story in a moment. Just want to let you know that if you are new to freelancing, maybe you're thinking about getting started, you've just got started, maybe you're in your first year, I have created a course to help you. It's the course I wish I had when I started out. It's not just my own experience, but also that of my guests of the podcast from over the years. So it's a real deep look into finding clients, working with them, getting paid, but also getting into that business mindset and figuring out work-life balance, much as it may be to you and how that might feel. It's all at beingfreelance.com. Click course, and it also comes with 6 months membership of the Being Freelance community, so you can get started surrounded by others who are already doing it. Don't do it alone. Come find us. The course is at beingfreelance.com. And if you've got any questions about whether it's right for you, feel free to drop me a line. Always happy to answer. beingfreelance.com. Right, back to David's story. How much time would you say you spend not working? As in, there's the client work, but you know, when you first started, you were doing 3 days for a client, 2 days figuring stuff out, trying to find other clients. How does that look for you now? And whilst I don't normally like to do extra long-winded, hyphenated questions, you know, because I'm sitting there thinking, sometimes you're writing books as well. So this is like a whole big chunk of time. Like, how do you manage your time? How does that break down?
Well, when I started out, there was the 3 days of the week for the cancer charity, my first client, and then it was more like 3 or 4 days that I would work on my website, because I loved it so much that I would put all my time into it. But ultimately, I know that there's got to be more of a balance, especially when families are involved and kids come along. So nowadays, I would still do usually a Monday to Friday, especially when the children are at school. When they have school holidays, it might be 4 days of the week that I would work, and it depends on the client projects I have. If there's nothing active that I'm doing for a client, then the focus for me is on my own work, updating my websites, marketing myself. And that can just be put to the side for weeks at a time if I wanted, but it always kind of draws me back. And I've got the office sitting in the garden here that I paid quite a lot of money for. So I think to myself, right, I've got to do something that's hard to switch off, even though even though my office is separate from my house. It's always been hard to switch off. I'm always thinking about design and work of some kind. But there'll be weeks whenever I'm working maybe 25 hours. There'll be other weeks when I'm working maybe 40 hours. And then there'll be weeks when I just go abroad with the family. I always try just to remember that there needs to be a balance, because my best work comes whenever I'm refreshed, when I've not been staring at a screen for hours on end. So I'll always be taking regular breaks. And I'm fortunate in that I think I've got a good balance at the minute. And it's been like that for a few years now. Now, you mentioned about writing the books. For those 4 book projects that I've had, what I wanted to do was avoid the client work on top of that. So I would say if I had inquiries coming in, I would pass them off to somebody who I thought might need the work, or I would just say no, and I would focus solely on the book, because they can be hefty projects for 8 months or a year, where you need to be pretty invested in order to make it as good as you want it to be. And thankfully, the publisher, working with a publisher, there's an advantage there, because they pay you an advance of the royalties, which covered a few bills. And then once the book starts selling, you get royalties after they've recovered the advance. So I've got a really nice balance at the minute. What about yourself? How many hours a week would you say you're working at the minute?
Do you know, it is so hard to nail down, especially because I chop and change between client work and being freelance stuff, i.e. the podcaster community and so on and so forth. So it's almost like I'm constantly thinking about things. But in reality, so much of my day is spent taking the kids, or thinking about the kids, or, doing house stuff, the dog, which is perfect for me. And now they're getting a bit older and they need me less. Uh-huh. It means more time that I can work how I want to work, I guess, on these things. But yeah, it's that never-ending, the fact that it never ends in my head as to what I could be doing. Oh, I could be doing that, I could be doing that. I know I should do that, those sort of jobs.
We're hardest on ourselves, I think, especially when we've been self-employed for so long. I think I picked up some of my kind of, I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur, but my business ethic from my dad, who owned a tire business in Belfast. He retired some years back, but for 45 odd years, he worked in Belfast for himself, and he would hire a small team. So that rubbed off on me. He was a really hard worker, and he never switched off. So I'm sure a bit of that rubbed off on me.
So he hired a team, but have you hired anybody to work with you?
I haven't. I've had opportunities to over the years, and I've purposely kept it to just me, because some of the people that I talked to, they loved design, and then they went on to hire teams, and as the companies grew and grew, they did less and less of the design work, and it was more about managing people and profits and margins. And I want to keep it just me, because I like dealing with the clients, and I like saying to a client that, look, when you hire me, I'm doing the work. So I think that makes it a little bit easier for the client to trust that they're going to get the outcome that they see in my portfolio. And also because I don't want to stop designing. I still love it. And I also don't want the added stress of managing a team and being more responsible for people's income. If it's just me, I like to keep my business as small as possible and as easy to manage. I'll never work with more than 2 or 3 clients at once. Because of that, my taxes are easy to file. I do my own tax returns on the HMRC website. There have been a couple of years when I've hired an accountant, just when book royalties caused a bit of a headache. But some people might think that I have a difficult time passing off responsibility if I'm not even hiring an accountant. But at the same time, I have the time to do it. It doesn't take long. My accounts are really easy, and that's the way I like it.
Yes. And also, there is something to be said for being closer to your numbers.
Yeah, I think so. I know exactly what's coming in and what's going out. And fortunately, if I didn't have a client for the next year or so, I still wouldn't be too worried about paying the bills. So I've got that buffer, and I'm really fortunate in that I've had my mortgage paid off. I've been able to do that, and the children have everything they need. And I always bring it back to the fact that we've got warmth in the winter, we've got food on the table, and keeping it as simple as possible is what I purposefully do, because I want to lead a relatively simple life where I just enjoy the good times while I can.
Now, David, I always do this thing where I ask for 3 facts about yourself to make 2 true and 1 a lie, and let me figure out the lie. What do you have for me?
Okay, my domain name was stolen once, which ruined a holiday, but it got me featured in the New York Times. An agency I did subcontract work for once threatened legal action when I used a project in my own portfolio, and a client disappeared, owing me thousands, and then came back a year later and paid in full. So that's what I came up with. What do you reckon?
3 legal nightmares. I don't understand that. How could someone steal your URL?
My Gmail account was hacked, and because of that, a hacker was able to send an email from my account to my web host where my domain name was held, asking for a code to let them release it. But there was a filter put into my Gmail account that meant that I didn't get to see the reply. As soon as the reply came in, they saw it. It was deleted. They stole my domain.
Oh my God. That's terrifying if that's true. When the client disappeared and they came back and they paid in full, did they give you any explanation?
They told me that they were going through a hard time. He said that his wife she had a bad illness and his focus was not on the work. But this came at a point where we'd been working together for about 4 or 5 months, and I'd done quite a lot of asks for him. The project wasn't going in a direction where I wanted it to. It was more a case of him micromanaging me. So I sent him everything he had worked on, and he just wouldn't reply to my messages. And it got to the point where I got an email from a print provider who was working with him, and they asked, "Have you heard from this person?" And I said, "No, that disappeared on me." And they said, "Well, we've hired this debt collection agency. Here are the details if you want to do that too." So I got debt collectors involved. It's the only time in my 20 odd years where I've done that. I didn't hear from the client until a year later. Yeah. And then I got all my money, but I had to pay about 30 or 40% to the debt collection agency. I don't know what role they had in that, but it's the one and only time. I don't want to do that again.
Oh my gosh. And then the agency didn't like the fact that you shared your work. So had you credited them at all on your portfolio?
Yes, there was a credit there that I did the job while I was, working with them. But it seems that it's a case with a lot of agencies or studios or agencies. Whenever you take employment with them, they want to reserve the right that you can't use it for your own self-promotion. Now, I've seen that in quite a few employment contracts. Now, I wasn't employed by them. I was a subcontractor, so it was more like we were working together. And I don't take on any work unless I can use it in my portfolio. That's one of my terms, because there'll be NDAs involved with some past clients that meant that I couldn't. And I just thought to myself, what's the point? I need to use my work to help attract future work. If I can't do that, then my portfolio is going to be stuck in the past. And yeah, they weren't happy. They wanted me to take it down. And I was saying, I did the work. So that was one where I just ceded in the end. And yeah, I haven't shown that since.
Oh my gosh. Okay, these all sound true. So which is the lie? Do you know, this is really based, as you said earlier, trust your gut. these all sound utterly plausible. So I'm going to say the portfolio one, number 2, is the lie.
And Steve, your gut is correct. Well done.
Come on! Which does mean that the 2 that you had the most nightmare with were absolutely true.
Yeah, the domain name. I was on holiday in India with my partner Catherine. This was before we had kids, and we'd been checking email, and someone had sent me an email saying, just in case you're unaware, I don't know what's going on with your website. It was pointing to a completely different domain. So someone was looking for davidairey.com, but it was just redirected somewhere else. I then contacted my web host, who said, yes, you requested this, that we give you the code. And then I got an email from the hacker asking for money. I put up a temporary website on davidairey.co.uk because I had that domain, and I explained what had happened. I wrote a post about my holiday, and this is what's happened. There's been a Gmail filter involved here that meant that I didn't see this email come in, and that's when I got on the first. Do you remember dig.com? D-I-G-G. No. It was kind of like the precursor to Reddit, where people would upvote various stories. It was a wildly popular website at the time, and my temporary website was then, somebody put that on there and it was put at the top, and then I think that's where the New York Times saw it from. So the story was put into the New York Times, so the Gmail hack, and to check your filters. Thankfully, after about a week, as a result of the publicity, I was in touch then with Matt Cutts, who worked in Google's web spam team, and through him contact the CEO of GoDaddy. My domain was transferred to GoDaddy, and they gave me it back. GoDaddy transferred it back into my hands. So yeah, that was a bit of a stressful one, and the holiday wasn't so great after that, but it all worked out in the end.
Wow, what a reminder! So the is everything 2-factor authenticated up to the max at your end now?
Yeah, the security was upped after that. Yeah, and I think that I had said before going on holiday, said on social media that I was going on holiday, and it was the day after I left when the request was put through. So they were probably thinking he's less likely to be checking his email now. So they were cunning. Yeah, it's very cunning.
Oh my God. It's not often this part of the podcast ends up with a real sort of like learning thing. Like a takeaway where you're like, okay, really must secure everything. David mentioned how good it is to have other people around you. You can come join us in the Being Freelance community. Loads of it is online. It's our own private space where you can ask questions, celebrate wins, show your work and be inspired by others' work as well, and just have a laugh to boot. You know, not everything has to be serious. So beingfreelance.com. Don't go, asking potentially things you wish you would say in private on LinkedIn. I see this sometimes. Come do it in the community instead. Plus, we do hang out online and in real life. So we do live Q&As, we do regular co-working, social calls as well, but then sometimes we meet in person. Just last week, we headed to the new Quentin Blake Centre for Illustration. It's the world's largest place devoted to illustration. It's newly opened in London. Highly recommend it. We went for a little field trip, just hung out there in the beautiful aircon and amazing place. Honestly, it's just so nice to go and have lunch with some freelance friends and then hang out and be inspired at a creative space. So yeah, come join us. Beingfreelance.com has all the information and you can join up there. Beingfreelance.com. I'll see you in the community. Right, let's get back to David's story. So 21 years, amazing, in business. What do you think makes like a good client relationship?
A good client will treat you more like a trustworthy doctor and defer to your expertise throughout the project, whereas a bad client just wants to micromanage the work that you do and tell you to put this here and change that to that. So the most beneficial projects that I take on are those where the client knows that I can do what they're wanting me to do and they don't feel the need to to get involved to that extent. There's always a back and forth. There needs to be in a design project. They can make a choice on the ideas that I present them, but I don't want them going to the extent where I don't like this color. Can you make it that? Or can you change this font to that one? If it gets to that point, then I would, well, it's rare when it does, but if it did, I would guide them back to saying, what is the reason why this one isn't working? And what benefit will this change make? So there needs to be a rationale behind all design decisions. And if a client is just subjectively saying, I prefer this to that, then it's too surface level. It needs to be deeper than that and related to their business in a way that makes me happy to make the change. And then we're all more confident in it strengthening the outcome.
So there's a confidence in being able to push back, but not to say no, but to question, help them question it. Yeah.
Whenever I present work, it'll generally be 1, 2, or 3 different design options. And on each page of the presentation, there'll be a description about why something is a certain way. And that explanation needs to relate to the business goals that they set out at the beginning. And when it does relate, the more it relates, the easier it is to reach consensus, and the smoother a project tends to flow.
Now, David, if you could tell your younger self one thing about being freelance, what would that be?
Well, I wouldn't advertise that I was going on holiday before. But what else? Enjoy it. Just enjoy it as much as possible, and don't look too far ahead. There's a lot of gazing into the future and what that might be like for designers, and not just designers, but a lot of different professions are wondering if there's going to be a role down the line. But I like to enjoy it while I can and focus on the project that I'm doing right now, make that the best that it can be. And then once it's finished, share it, which will hopefully lead to more. Don't stress yourself about thinking a year or 5 years in advance, because things change fast. You don't know what's going to happen. Just enjoy it while you can.
So you're not someone who sets longer term goals?
I don't. I like to keep it a lot more present.
Right, interesting. Yeah, me too, I think. Go to beingfreelance.com. There will be links through so that you can find David and his work and check out his books. Just find him online. Hopefully the website hasn't been nicked. So that's beingfreelance.com. Go through, find him and say hello. And of course, while you're there, check out all of the other guests as well. It's not about the specific skill. It's all about the being freelance. Do take a look there. But for now, David, thanks so much and all the best. Being freelance.
Steve, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
How good is David? What a lovely guy. I'm glad I persevered. Yet, as he mentioned, I invited David on years ago and the timing wasn't right. And I think I asked again and the timing still wasn't right. And I asked again, literally years later, and perfect timing after all of that. So thank you, David, for chatting to us. Go to beingfreelance.com and join the newsletter so you get some freelance inspiration in your inbox, and join the community so you get some freelance love around yourself too. More of these. I think I've at least got another one of these to come before the summer break. So yeah, do make sure you've hit subscribe or follow, whatever the wording may be, wherever you're getting this, because remember, it is in video as well on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I'll see you for another one very soon indeed. You have a great week. Being freelance.